maybe we can stay a little bit longer on the professional fulfillment side, because you do have a excellent TEDx talk, talking about that, kind of like just finding meaning into what you do. And I really liked it, because would you say it's, in a nutshell, kind of is, if you like what you're doing, like really like what you're doing, and what is it that you're doing, has some sort of healthy relationship, that you set yourself boundaries, and like you're aware that you're not overworking yourself or whatever, would that eventually, just those things, lead to a productive member, right? Like a productive person that is good at what they're doing, and does their job good and contributes to whatever that job means.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about that, so, with this idea of professional fulfillment, of having a job that you really love, of having a job that brings you meaning and purpose, and you feel good about it, it doesn't mean that your very first job out of college is going to be 100% that, right?
Yeah, perfect.
So a lot of times the purpose and the meaning of your job might be to be working towards something bigger and grander, right? Like, I didn't necessarily love the time I was spending, studying for my qualifying exams or typing my dissertation, but I was feeling fulfilled by the fact that this is getting me closer to my goal of becoming a psychologist, so I can help people.
Yeah, and just to interrupt you, you had an excellent quote at the end. If I remember correctly, is... oh my God, I lost it. It was... Do you remember the quote? It was like, not trying to find meaning in what you do. It's like, no...
Yeah,
I don't
so
remember, but it's like finding meaning into like
right.
anything that you do.
Right. You might not have a job that feels immediately meaningful to you in the present moment, but you can find meaning in the work itself.
Right.
Perfect, and so, everyone is contributing something. And so the way that you think about your job can have such a big impact. Like, you hear the stories about people who are in the janitorial service in the hospital, and you can say you could have a perspective that job is not meaningful, or you can have the perspective that this person is keeping the environment clean, which will allow the patients to be in an environment where they can recover. Yeah. So they are saving lives in their own way. Yeah, and that is very meaningful, right?
It's like plumbers are saving also almost the same amount of lives that doctors are saving, or even more. Something like that.
Right. Or, even thinking about maybe the fact that I am doing this job, and so it's giving me a paycheck, which I'm using to support my family. It might not be that it's the job itself that I'm super excited about, but it's the fact of having this job and what it means for me as a person, that I can be doing good as a result of that.
And that's wonderful. Even it can be like the simplest thing of like, this is my first job, and I'm trying to figure out what I want to do, and I'm trying to develop myself as a professional, whatever that looks like.
Right.
And even though I'm even though I'm being a cashier or something like that people normally think of I don't know, a lesser job, whatever. That is cool, right? It is amazing that I'm a cashier. I'm starting this progress, or even if I'm the end of this progress, I'm ending this thing doing this, that I get to interact with people and whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. As a cashier, you have a lot of opportunity to bring joy to other people's days,
Yeah.
Whether you're smiling and friendly
perfect.
How quickly you're doing your job, whether you are, making eye contact, whether you are loading the product carefully into the bag or smashing it in there. There are things that we can do in any job to make it more enjoyable or more meaningful.
Yes.
And it's very much a matter of our attitude and our perspective.
Right. And even as a student, right? Because I imagine that would be the most, the biggest audience that this can have is even if I'm just studying for I don't know, a humanities course, that even though I'm a doctor or a medical student, I need to take this humanities course and whatever. But that's cool, right? Isn't just cool to think it's oh yeah, I'm just spending my whole time just learning.
Right.
Which I don't get to do basically almost ever when I graduate. So like, why not just enjoy the learning while it's there?
Absolutely. And it may end up that something in that course ends up really profoundly impacting something in the future too. You may connect with a patient in the future because of something you learned in that course. Or you may have new insight into a scientific problem or a clinical challenge because of something you learned in that course. You never know. And on the flip side, sometimes the value of a job or a class or a task is you're learning what you don't love.
Yeah,
and that is equally important.
Absolutely.
You know, there are so many times where we feel like we have to follow some prescribed pathway that, you know, this is what's expected of me, or this is what you have to do to get to this goal. And honestly, a lot of the time, that's not true. You know, there might be a more typical pathway to get places, but it doesn't mean that that is the only pathway. And sometimes when you have a job or a position or an opportunity, learning that this is not for me, I never want to do this again.
It's extremely valuable.
Right. Because that will help steer you, again, back to that job crafting, towards an eventual goal that is a good fit. So you can have a career that's meaningful, or you can have, you know, I call it an occupation. It doesn't have to be even a paid job. You know, people have different occupations in life, different vocations in life. Maybe it's, you know, volunteer work. Maybe it's a hobby that you have outside of your paid work. Maybe it's parenthood, you know, whatever it might be. But, you know, identifying for yourself what really matters to you. What are you passionate about? What lights you up? Because it's different for everyone. And I think it takes longer for us to recognize that than maybe it should. But I mean, I was several years into my faculty position, and I had this one task that I was responsible for. And I just dreaded it. It was the worst part of my week all the time. I hated it so much. And I felt, well, you know, I'm just paying my dues. You know, this is what I have to do.
It is what it is, kind of a thing.
Right.
Maybe.
And then I was talking to a colleague and found out they were really interested in it and would love that. And my mind was blown that anyone would want to do this. And so, you know, I very quickly offloaded the task to this person. And we were both much happier as a result. And so, you know, that's an important component of career development, professional development, just life development in general is, you know, looking for solutions outside the box, recognizing what you like, what you don't like, what you're good at, what you're not good at and don't care to be good at. You know, it's okay to not be great at everything. It's okay to say, this is not my thing. I'm not going to pursue this anymore. And I'm going to spend my time and energy pursuing this thing that I am passionate about. And I think oftentimes we make our own opportunities that way. Like in my position as the director of wellness programs, that wasn't a position. That was my side passion project because, as I said, I was doing this research on individuals who had, you know, developed severe impairing conditions. And it lit this fire in me that we need to be doing more preventatively. And so I just started working on that.
That is pretty cool, yeah.
Not as, you know, not a real part of my job. It wasn't part of my annual evaluation or anything. But because I was doing the work, then it kind of grew. And then, you know, there was more excitement and enthusiasm about it. And, you know, our former dean created a new position, a new college level leadership position. And so I was the natural choice because I was already doing this. And you hear those stories, I think, more often than you would recognize it, or you would initially think that, you know, people sort of make their own destiny a lot of the time by finding something that they care deeply about and pursuing it. And, you know, it may be that that's taking some time away from other things. And that's part of the balance, right? Depending on where you're at in your life, you may say, right now, my focus has to be on my romantic relationship. I'm in my first year as a newlywed, and we need to focus on building a strong foundation.
Right.
That's okay.
Right.
Do it,
Right.
you know, or I just had a baby. Right now, I'm going to focus more of my time on that, or, you know, whatever. cool, go for it. That's your choice and your decision. But it's also your decision to say, right now, I'm at a place where I can invest a little bit extra time in my career passion, in, this meaningful work, and
Like,
figure out
no
a way.
kids, no wife. Let's try to do this max right now.
Yeah,
right now.
Or whatever. Again, there's different phases in life. Like now all my kids are in school, so now I have more time to pursue these things. Or, my kids have left for college, or whatever it might be. But, we all have these different phases, these different ups and downs in all aspects of our life, whether it's our relationships, our families, our work, whatever. And so, you've probably heard the saying before. I'm probably going to say it wrong. You can have it all, just not at the same time.
Okay.
And so it's this idea that it's okay to not be everything to everyone all at once, that you can kind of pick and choose, where am I going to put my focus right now? And what matters? What's my priority right now for this phase?